Hello, followers. So, I had a question come up about juicing and if I could talk about juicing. Now, obviously, this is a very popular fad intervention, right? I mean, you can buy a million different versions of a pre made juice cleanse. You'll see vegetable juices like lining the walls of Whole Foods, right? Like juice bars are all the rage, right? People will say, like, oh, I'm going to do a cleanse or do a detox, and it usually looks like juicing. So this is a very, very popular fad intervention, but there actually is some scientific underpinning to it. It is not totally junk science. It's just often done in a non-optimal way and for reasons that aren't actually backed by the science. So let's talk first about what juicing does not do. uh, a 3 to 5 day juice fast, which is what you usually see, is not going to cleanse or detox you. It just, like most things, right? It's not just going to be this one and done quick fix reset, right? So if you are doing a juice cleanse for that purpose, it's probably not going to work. So it's really important to just be aware of what it actually has the ability to do and what it does not. So these short-term intensive juice fasts are really not very beneficial, in my opinion. I will also say that a lot of juice fasts use a lot of fruit juice as a part of it, right? And in my opinion, if you are doing a juice fast and you are drinking a lot of fruit juice as a part of that fast, first of all, it's not a fast because there's actually a lot of calories in fruit juice, a lot more than in vegetable juice, and so you're not actually fasting in terms of like the autophagy effects that you can get from fasting, in terms of your body actually getting into cellular detox mode, right? And fruit is really not great for your metabolism. Now, fruit is not evil. I don't like to make these black and white statements, but it is very high in fructose, and fructose is hard on your liver. And so it's really counterproductive to be trying to do something like a cleanse or a detox that takes a lot of liver power, and then to be drinking a lot of fruit juice, which also has to be processed through the liver. It's just at odds with each other, right? A detox and drinking a lot of fruit juice is completely at odds with each other, and a lot of these fruit cleanse, fruit detox recipes you'll see will be very high in fruit juice. The other issue is that vegetable juicing, so the whole celery juice fad, a lot of juices that have things like spinach and beets and kale in it, which is very, very common if you start looking. A lot of those have very high levels of oxalic acid. Now, I'm not going to go very deeply into oxalates in this video. Oxalic acid is also known as oxalates or oxalate crystals. I do have several videos on my page that talk about oxalates, so look for those in the titles and learn about it. But for people who have a hard time processing oxalates and may have issues like kidney stones or kidney disease or thyroid nodules or joint pain, or stubborn heavy metal toxicity or these kinds of issues, oxalates might not be the best thing for you to be megadosing on, right? Because when you are juicing, you are taking out all the fiber, but you're still leaving all the compounds. And there's a lot of beneficial compounds that are in vegetables, but there's also a lot of anti-nutrients, a lot of these more irritating or harmful compounds, and oxalates are one of those. It's also possible that oxalates are detox better if you eat them with fiber, and so it actually makes you absorb them more, potentially. I know the science is kind of iffy on this, but it's potentially that you will actually absorb oxalates more if you do it without the fiber, and that's exactly what juicing does. So it is a concern if you are doing it as just, with the mentality that's just a one and done cleanse. You're just gonna somehow, purge your body, by doing juicing for 3 days, and you're going to be good to go. It's just not realistic. If your juice is very high in fruit, it's actually not going to be good for your metabolism. It's not going to be a fast, and it might actually be hard on your liver. And if you think you have an issue with oxalates or oxalic acid, juicing is probably not a great idea for you as well, at least in high amounts. The last thing I will say is if you are buying any kind of already made juice, if you're not making it yourself with a juicer at home, you really have to look, because very often it's been pasteurized. And part of the potential benefits, which I'll talk about in a minute, of juicing is getting a lot of enzymes, a lot of raw enzymes from the plant material. And that is going to be killed off if the juice has been pasteurized. And most of the juice you're going to buy is not raw. So you can look at the label and look at this, but most of it has been pasteurized. So that also is not going to be very beneficial. So make sure you look at that if you are buying pre-made juices. Okay, so let's talk about the good things about juicing, because it is a traditional remedy. It is used in things like Ayurveda and other very traditional medicinal protocols. So there is some science behind it. There is some, traditional wisdom behind it. It can be used strategically. So the real benefit for juicing is that it can be used as a modified fast. It can be used as a cleanse. So a lot of times what defines a fast is how many calories you are eating, right? Obviously, there's just like a water fast, you can do, which is no calories, right? So that's a true fast, right? But you can sometimes get away with having some amount of calories as long as it's under a certain number. And people put this number different places. Some people say under 500, some people say under 200, some people say under 50. I would say if you're consuming less than 50 to 100 calories a day, that's pretty good for a fast. Like, you still will likely get some of the autophagy, some of the cellular detox benefits, that is the whole reason to do a fast. So vegetable juice, depending on how you do it, can actually be in this category, right? A lot of vegetables, the juices are pretty low calorie. You have to be careful with stuff like carrots or beets. Just make sure it's not too much. But, a lot of greens, celery, cucumber, herbs like parsley, cilantro, a lot of the plants that are great for juicing are pretty low calorie. So they can be used to supplement a fast, and you likely will still get a lot of the benefits of the fast by using these vegetable juices. The other thing is that a lot of compounds in vegetables, a lot of the polyphenols and the other compounds, they have these antioxidant properties, right? And they can be very stimulating to the liver and stimulating to the detox pathways in the liver. And they can be very cleansing, so you will hear a lot, about like bitter greens are good for the liver. And that is because of the bitter compounds in those plants that stimulate the liver and help open up your detox pathways. So juicing those compounds gives you a huge concentration of that, right? Depending on some factors, some of these juices can also be very high in minerals, right? Because plants are a great source of minerals, generally speaking, depending on when they're grown and how much oxalic acid is in it and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of factors there, but it can be a really great source of refeeding minerals, which is also super important for detoxification. And as I mentioned before, the raw compounds in vegetables are great for our digestive system and just our overall health, because it's really high in enzymes, right? And enzymes do break down when you cook them. And this is part of the benefit of eating raw foods or fermented foods, is that you get a lot of these live enzymes, which are super great for us. Now, I don't usually recommend to my clients mowing down on a bunch of raw vegetables all the time, just because raw vegetable fiber tends to be very hard on our digestive tract. So I'm usually telling my clients to cook your vegetables, right? And that's great. You do get more digestive benefit from that, and your body is able to extract a lot of more nutrients from those plants when they're cooked. But the downside is then you aren't getting as many of the enzymes, right? Like the compounds that degrade with cooking and that are only there with raw. You can circumvent this by eating a lot of fermented vegetables, right? Because that breaks down the fiber, but it keeps the enzymes alive, and obviously probiotics and things like that. But another way around that is to occasionally do some juicing, right? Because vegetable juices will contain all those beneficial compounds, but you've taken the fiber out, so it's a lot easier to absorb. So vegetable juicing has been particularly used traditionally, well, you know, commonly, I will say, for two particular things. One is it is part of the Gerson protocol for cancer, and this is one method of treating cancer naturally. It's not necessarily the go-to that I use with my clients, but it is one that has some success stories out there and has some success rate out there, and so I think it's important to bring up. And the Gerson protocol uses vegetable juicing extensively because of the cleansing, detoxifying properties that I mentioned in the compounds in plants. So it is often used for that. It can also be used for heavy metal detox. Now, this takes a long time. We're talking like a 2 to 4 year process here. This is not like you're going to get heavy metal IV chelation, right? This is a much gentler, much slower process. But the idea is that not only are the compounds in it stimulating to the liver and helps with support our detox pathways, as I mentioned before, but also that there are actually plants that have gently chelating properties, right? So, for example, cilantro and spirulina and chlorella all have been known to have chelating properties, meaning that they help pull heavy metals out of your tissues. So, including those kinds of plants and algae in your vegetable juices can help support a heavy metal detox process. But like I said, this is a very, very slow, gentle approach to it. It's not something you're just going to do, a quick juice fast with these compounds and be good to go. This is over years, right? But it can be used that way. So, how would I use juice fasting? Or juicing in general, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, you can do it as a part of your fasting protocol. So, you could fast once a week and just have a couple glasses of vegetable juice that day instead. Or maybe once a month, or maybe once every couple months, so you can use it that way. And this is not a one and done kind of thing of just a one-time, 3-day juice fast and everything's fine, but to every week or every month do a short juice fast. Some people also use it as a part of their intermittent fasting protocol. So, they'll instead of eating breakfast, they'll juice first thing in the morning. And first thing in the morning, before 10 a.m. is a great time to juice because your body is usually still in detox mode, until 9 or 10 in the morning. And so if you get juice in first thing in the morning before your body has shifted out of detox mode for the day, it can really benefit that process. So that is the primary way that I would incorporate juicing, either daily as part of an intermittent fast or once a week or once a month where you just do a day of juicing. Again, I am not a fan of juicing multiple times a day, every day for long periods of time because of my concerns about the potential for oxalate buildup. I am not a fan of including a lot of fruit in your vegetable juices. They're not therapeutic. If you need to have a tiny bit of fruit in for taste, you can start with that, but I would really encourage you to really work on your palate and start to work that fruit out so you're actually getting the beneficial compounds in the vegetables without the sugars from the fruit. And just don't expect it to work overnight. Don't expect it to do anything miraculous overnight. Think of it as like a long-term therapy or a long-term maintenance thing. So that's my little tutorial on how to use juicing for your health and what it does and what it doesn't do. I hope that was helpful. And let's see, I still have a few questions to get through that people have asked me to do videos on. But if you have topics you want me to address, please post it in the comments and I will get to it.